slurs against Africans, we know why we're making them. We're not being stupid. We know. Now, if it's just like maybe joking, if it's not being serious, but we know that something happened to you and we're doing it really, maybe it's joking, but we know that you're going to be offended by it, which is why we're doing it. The problem we have with Africans in America or in the diaspora, when they get around whites, they sell out, try to defer themselves, or basically try to say, you know what, well, we don't know what happened. Like that's not us.
Hi guys, welcome to Kenganda. My name is Joanita Maya and this is the Reap Part podcast. Now I'll let this gentleman in their 40s introduce themselves. I just had to.
Well, you know they say age ain't nothing but a number.
Yeah, let her know. So, let her know, OG. Tell her OG. I hear
but yeah, man, back at it. It's the brother Babaluku here on the podcast, showing love. You know what I mean? I'm being here to build, connect, and inform, and also be informed.
Mm-hmm. It's your boy Master Guys, man. Proudly in my 40s. I'm not old, I'm experienced.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? We teach you a few things, Joe. We can teach you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're gonna learn out here.
I was appreciating your age. Because you all don't look 40. You look like you're in your 30s.
I know I look good. I don't know about him. But Oshay, you still going on? I mean, I don't want to make you feel like you was irrelevant or anything like that. Did you still want to say something?
No, man, you got it. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I know he been going viral. He think he all that now, but I'm back. Oshay Duke, Del Paso Heights, 3800 block, Sacramento, California, African American. We in the building.
On gang.
Don't make me start throwing up no gang. My mama watching, so I can't really throw up the hood. You know what I mean? She said, "Boy, you better stop doing that. I raised you better than that." Okay. So, but anyways, shout out to Samran. She's our producer for the Pan African Dating Show. She actually sent me a clip about a very interesting topic in the diaspora, and that is the N-word. We all know what it means, but some people feel like Africans are okay with the N-word. And what I want to do is let me just say this, right? There was a very viral clip that happened on the podcast called Fresh and Fit. Mm-hmm. You saw that, Doc? Okay, and it was with some white supremacist by the name of Nick Fuentes. You heard about that? Okay, so there were ladies there that are encouraging him to say the N-word. Now I'm gonna play this clip. You guys probably not see it. You'll see when the podcast comes out, right? Mm-hmm. But we're gonna beep out the N-word. So we'll play that clip right now.
Hey, what you got?
You want me to say it?
Yes.
Is anyone gonna hit me if I say it?
No. Let's go. 2 hours. No. Come on, Nick. What you got?
All right.
Let's go. 2 hours. No. Come on, Nick. What you got?
All right.
Okay, so even though you didn't see the clip, these are ladies encouraging him to say it, the white guy, right? But we feel in the African American community, there is no way that those women, although they're American, they would have to be Caribbean or African. Because there's a thing that when people say the N-word and it's a white racist, sometimes Africans believe you talking about these guys who got stolen in the slave trade.
Well, you're not talking about us.
Those are not our people, so you ain't talking about us. So you say whatever the hell you want. We not offended by it. Mm-hmm. So since you brothers have lived in the diaspora, I want to get your points of view, especially Agaba, Agaba is almost like an honorary African American. That's why the people coming home with him on TikTok, go back to America, you black American. They don't know you from Uganda, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you know. So, but what do you guys? They'll start with you, Babaluku. Like, is that the African perspective on the N-word?
I think when you say the African perspective, there's no African perspective on the N-word, man. It doesn't exist here.
Okay, great.
It's only extended via pop culture effects, and it's infused in lifestyles that people emulate. So then they carry on the language and tonality of what they're emulating on television. But when I go in a hood right now,
That was a bar.
it's not like you're gonna find a villager calling you, hey, it's not gonna happen.
Right.
You know, if I shoot you 2 hours drive from here, it does not exist. So what does that say? It's not a narrative. So we actually need to frame this like this. Most media hits urban centers. So in Kampala, if you're only in Kampala, which is the capital here, yes, you will see young people who are emulating their African-American lifestyle, utilizing this word as an adaptation of something cool. Some of them don't even know what it carries or what it means. I have guests here from Washington that came through. We happen to go to the craft market, and this old lady comes out, and I say, hey, niggas, come to me.
Oh, wait.
Now, hold up. Now, in the car, we were just talking about the N-word before that happened.
Wait a minute.
You know? But because of the energy... Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing, but that sounds like something that would happen on like a Keenan Ivory Wayans movie or something back in the day. So you're saying that that's what it sounds like, man. Like, I'm gonna get you, sucker. Yeah. Or a Marlon Wayans. Yeah.
You know,
it sounds like one of those things. You know what I mean?
What I recall is that when they heard that, and according to the conversation we're having in the car, which really was alluding to how they don't like to affiliate with that energy in that word.
But these are African Americans, right? These are African Americans.
Yes.
Okay, you was hosting them.
Listen, they're in Africa, in all places.
Oh my God.
Right? You have come to the continent in all places. You're running away from a certain, energy word that you don't want to utilize.
Yes.
And then someone wants to sell you something by calling you that exact word. So my folk were like, yo, we're not buying from her. It doesn't matter what's happening. Now, whether I could explain to them that she doesn't understand what has happened and how she's using it, it didn't matter at that time.
Yes.
The trauma and the connection had already cut that off.
Right.
But I also know that she did not do it to malice or, she comes out of that place. She thinks it's a lovable word because she hear people use it. So she figured they're different. They look like they. Even me, when I came here, a lot of people used to call me, you look like a nigga, And I used to kind of refrain, and I'm like, listen, you might want to call me a king versus that.
But why did they say you look like? But what was it about you?
I was sharing with you that due to the media resets of the information they have received on television via all this music we're watching, all these movies that are coming out, right? That's the power and influence of media. So I wouldn't want my peers in the Americas to think that Africans are calling you nigger because they understand the history of the word. They don't have a clue on what, that definition is. Matter of fact, most often when you school them, they'll drop it quick.
Oh,
they will not even go ahead and say that to you again. So I think that we have to have that contrast of knowing what information has done over time. Other than that, like no one is out here in Africa trying to be a nigger. Like, you're free. Like you're free out here.
It's very funny that you say that. I was thinking in my mind, the first and only time I remember being called a nigger in Uganda. I was in a supermarket. This is 2005. I was in a supermarket with my dad. We were in Garden City. I think it was Uchumi Supermarket at the time. We were checking out, and the guy who was bagging up the groceries, I was wearing a sleeveless t-shirt, like a cutoff tee. And I had tattoos on my arms. And the guy was like, you look like a nigga. I was like, what? But the guy was smiling like, the guy was smiling. He's like, I like your tattoo. You look like a real nigga. I was like, okay, so you think I look like an American hip hop?
You have
a representation of that image.
Yeah.
So I didn't take it badly. I was like, okay, cool, you know. But to be honest with you, like I've never really encountered too many instances where, except for, in situations where it's young people trying to really force themselves to appear and sound and talk like American hip hop artists, they don't use the word. It's not used. I just don't hear it. You know, I don't hear it in the community, in the young community. I just don't hear it. You know, unless you're heavily influenced, unless you're one of those people who's gone to school there, lived there, grown up there, and through that experience, it has just entered your pattern of speech as a slang word to mean my guy or whatever, you know.
Right.
But you know, my nigga or whatever. But to call that guy is a nigga, no.
Yeah.
No. That doesn't exist. I will say this though. I will say this. Oh man, and you're gonna love this, and you're probably gonna want to clip this too. But
Hold on a second. Story time music.
so you know, I love my dad, man, and he's one of like the best influences in my life in terms of what a responsible, right thinking, you know, productive leader looks like in terms of your family at large, you know, professionally. He's always been respected and all of that stuff. But when we were growing up in the US, and I think I mentioned this to you guys before in terms of like sometimes when, like I mentioned to you, I have an older brother who spent a lot of time in the legal system because he was hanging out with guys who would be looked at, man, those are niggas. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so growing up, I kind of understood that there's blacks, there's black Americans, and then there's niggas. You know? Like, and there was always a way of defining the distinction between the two.
Yes.
The individuals that were called niggas were always those with, you know, criminal patterns of behavior, who represented lower income communities, who were not necessarily the most articulate and well-spoken individuals, guys who you would say act ghetto. You know what I'm saying? Those are the characteristics that I would say Africans associate with what look like, sound like, feel like, what the experience of interacting with what a white person would look at a black person and say, these are unfavorable characteristics in you. That's what a nigga must be like. And because you don't identify with that, because you don't relate to that, and you don't necessarily appreciate the journey. Somebody, again, in the comments was schooling me to
they've been dealing with you over in the comments.
Yeah, they've been dealing with me. They've been educating me, man. But it's all right. We're all here to learn from each other. So, of course, there's a whole conversation around the systemic conditions that have led to, what do I say? Disenfranchisement in the urban community.
Yes.
Right? If you will allow me to just generalize it like that.
Yeah.
So not be too long-winded about it. But disenfranchisement and, you know, substandard conditions in terms of education and schooling and access to certain things that, you know, other portions of the American population, you know, have access to, or lack of access, or what have you. So I would say, for me, Africans could look at people within that community who reside within that community and paint them with a broad brush. Man, those are niggas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then when you have the hardworking, productive, civilized, you know, well-spoken.
Yeah.
You know how folks like to get to get not offended, but you take exception to the fact when a white person tells a black man, "Oh, you're so articulate."
Oh yeah. Oh, I hate
You're so well
that.
spoken. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
So when an African looks at a black American person and sees that representation, those aren't niggas.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The niggas are the guys who you fear when you see them coming across the street and you try and roll up your windows and lock your doors and clutch your purse and hide your shit. You know? So are Africans allowed to say the word nigga? I just don't think it's
It's relevant.
It's relevant.
I don't think it's relevant. It's not one of those things that guys use as a weapon.
Yep.
It's used because of misinformation.
Yeah.
It's used because the lens through which you look at people who exist in a culture that is so different from yours is that lens is colored. That lens is blurry. It's not a crystal clear lens. So I just think because of that, sometimes it can be said, but not badly.
Yeah, I for one, I'll defend my Africans. Let me defend my people. I like you two have said. I don't think when an African says the N-word, I don't think they're coming from a bad. I don't think they have bad intentions with it. Like you said, it's misinformation or not knowing something. I'll give you an example. When we're in high school and we're teenagers, so like we had kids who used the N-word. And it's like, oh, they're talking amongst each other, so they're calling themselves the N-word. And then if he wanted to like be rebellious, he would call the teacher the N-word. But these are kids that sing this in songs. It's in the music, the music they listen to, the music videos they watch. That's what they're saying. Then another scenario is my mother. Oh, okay. I think I can talk about her. My mom, when she would tell you, oh, don't stay away from those kids like who act like nigga. Like I said, who act like the N-word. She just meant like stay away from the kids who are rebellious and who have like a bad rap shit, Stay away from those kids because then they're going to influence you to also do bad. So to her saying that as someone from her generation who wasn't that well exposed, it's more like this, all she knows is the media. The media portrays, like even the hip hop songs when they're singing and they put the N-word, they're just like, sorry to say, like showing off guns or doing something or trying to rob someone. And it's like a whole script of them doing what they're doing and portraying that this is what the N people, I don't want to say the word, this is what they're doing, using that N word. But yeah, I don't, at the end of the day, I don't think they're being evil with it. I just think they're just misinformed. But I've heard some Africans use the N word when they're pissed or mad. So it's been like, okay, let me just say it. Just excuse me for this. No, it's like, nigga, please, like,
Okay.
But it's from a song. There's a song. No, nigga, please, So it's like, oh, please. We're like, nigga, please. Like, stay away from me. What do you mean? That's ridiculous, So I don't think, and most of the Africans are not, I would say, are not well, the information out there about where the word originated from is not well communicated to Africans. But then I'll also flip the script and say I would in a certain way also blame African Americans, because when we see you guys interact and use the N-word, it's like your besties, your buddies, like this is your thing. What's up? Like you're just like, oh, I haven't seen you in a long time. Come here. You understand? So when we see something like that, like, oh, that they're not saying it as a bad word. They're saying it as a form of communication. Like these are brothers and they're just, it's just a word that they're using. So when an African sees that, maybe they think, oh, maybe that's how it's a normal word that we can also use. But yeah.
I'm going to have to push back on you Ugandans today. Okay. We're going to have a little bit of tribalism. and Doc, who's African-American here, he going to be my cheering corner. I think with the problem that African Americans don't have an issue with blacks saying the N-word, but let's talk about in proximity to those who are around whites. Here's what we see in the African American community. When we see people, when whites are saying the N-words, let's say something by somebody like, for an example, this is not all the way equal, but Doja Cat. Doja Cat was on streams with white racists and things like that. She's half South African, half Jewish. Okay, we have seen certain evidences of Africans around white people who say the N-word and they are not offended. And we got to be honest. I like the excuses that you guys are giving, but y'all know what happened to our people. We know the reason why we know is because Museveni just apologized about it. And y'all keep saying we need you to come what? Back. When you say Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and you see us a black person like you, Mike Tyson, what do the Africans say? What do Burna Boy say? We wanted to be like them. Well, why are they there? What's the biggest music genre in Uganda?
Afrobeat.
No, besides that.
Hip hop.
It's dancehall.
Oh.
How did they get over to Jamaica? You think the Africans don't know that? What about the Africans in South Africa? Do they know about what happened to Amapiano? Do y'all know what happened to their people? Africans know what happened to them. So why do Africans act like you don't know? You do know what happened. Now we're trying to give Africa a pass, and y'all know what happened to us. You know. You're very clear about the fact that you know. Everybody knows.
All right.
Let me push back. Hold on. You know. When you see LeBron, Michael Jordan, you see Beyonce, you see Whitney Houston, you see how did those blacks, every African asks himself that. How the did they get there? So what I'm saying is this, to this point, using the N-word, no. But then at the same time, when you say around whites, I'm not saying this is all Africans. We got some brothers and sisters in Africa that are freedom fighters. We didn't see them from SWAPO to everybody. We got brothers out there for this stuff, right? I'm talking about sellouts. When sellouts get around whites, they ain't got no problem with whites saying the N-word, and they will do it all the time, and they will easily identify themselves as being separate from us. And we see it all the time because we see it too. When Africans say Nigerian excellence, what are you trying to say? It's not those other niggas over there. We did it for ourselves. Ugandan excellence, hashtag Haitian excellence, all the way in Miami. So y'all can make that distinction. We are not them. So a lot of Africans and Caribbeans feel like y'all not talking about us, especially blacks know the NIGGA and the NIGGR. Y'all know the difference, especially, I'm not talking about those who are unexposed in the village, but there are those in the diaspora, those who live amongst us, and you know, but you don't mind copying the African-American style when it fits you, or getting affirmative action when it fits you, and then turn around and have that conversation and play stupid like you don't know. But you do. Because when we see African booty scratcher, what does that indicate? It means we know what happened to and we know it was wrong, but we're still using it in a terminology that is wrong, and that is our fault. But when we use that terminology, we know what happened to you. We know. We know that the white man came to Africa and took Uganda and took Kenya and took Tanzania. Why is Africa poor? We might not be able to explain who was the French or where it is or what's Francophone or Anglophone, but we do know. That's a fact. When we know that Africa is poor, we know why it's poor. And when we make those slurs against Africans, we know why we're making them. We're not being stupid. We know. Now, if it's just like maybe joking, if it's not being serious, but we know that something happened to you and we're doing it really. Maybe it's joking, but we know that you're going to be offended by it, which is why we're doing it. The problem we have with Africans in America or in the diaspora, when they get around whites, they sell out, try to defer themselves, or basically try to say, you know what, well, we don't know what happened. Like that's not us. And then they try to change and make the case. I'm not buying. You know what happened to our group, and we know what happened to your group. And whenever we make the case, we want to go ahead and say Africans are not doing well. We don't say that when y'all do very well in America, right? What about the number one group in America is Nigerian Americans? Oh, all of a sudden, y'all don't know? So y'all can be the best in America, but you don't know what happened to us? That you do know. You know. That's the N-word right there. You know. And y'all people know what we've been through. Just as much as we know what you've been through. We might not put a dot on it, but we got a picture. We know y'all been oppressed by the same people. So we got to start holding our people accountable. Because if you know Michael Jordan, if you know LeBron James, if you know Mike Tyson, why is the African and American speaking English? Africans are not that silly. They know that something happened to these people as to why I'm looking up to Beyonce in America and not in Uganda. I'm looking up to Whitney Houston in New York City or New Jersey, but not here. There's a reason why she's there. There's a reason why Bob Marley, I'm looking up to him and not looking up to him here. I know how they got there. Africans are not silly. They're not. They know. So we got to stop lying to them, acting like they fucking know. They know. Blacks know. We all know what happened to each other. We know it. So why are we lying?
I think I'll contribute to that this way, having grown up between, of course, the low town. I grew up in a white town, right? So, and later on you learn the history that it's definitely a redneck town, right? So you know that half of the things that happen when you live around an area where you're marginalized, even when you're present there and claiming to be, you have rights and all of this stuff, but you're still locked out, you tend to as an immigrant. Now I'm giving this as an immigrant perspective.
Yeah, no, bring it up. Bring it
from an immigrant perspective, you are in a cultural clash whereby so many things are happening.
Yeah.
And you're learning things at a pace where you're unaware of all of this information that now you are taking in this intense, like I'll give you an example. The first time I got a gun to my head, I was 13 and was by private police. And it was not far from home. I live close to a bridge, a train bridge that goes into New York, right? And so I was right passing there. And when they apprehended me, they said I fit the description. I had never heard any of this thing, right? And in my mind as an immigrant kid, how do I identify with that, right? Now, I tell you they treat me like a nigga then. You know what I'm saying? But I just came fresh from Africa.
Okay.
I don't know what is really. I don't know what this police are doing that is called racial profiling. I don't even have that in my mind.
Okay.
You understand me? I'm actually a true case of growing up in a space where you are not accepted, but you learn to coexist. And start building your own way.
Say it again, brother. I didn't hear that.
You know what I'm saying?
Say it again one more time.
You know,
Say
a place, you know, where you know you exist, but you know you're not allowed. You're not accepted in any circle. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't know. So when you talk about African American and you talk about immigrants, right? Like with the case of being immigrants, you're like at the lowest of any conversation in those communities.
Oh, absolutely.
You understand me? So having grown up, as that's my introduction to the West, as a child of an immigrant, I started to, matter of fact, maybe the advocacy even came from that. Because even my brothers going sideways came from that. Because like police is already taking us anyways. Anything happens in the hood, they're knocking on my mom's door. So it's like, might as well impersonate what they're claiming we are.
Right.
So
I see that.
The whole complex of thinking that people know, I think for me, it's not even an excuse. We're in a machine that's working on us daily, bro. You know what I mean? But we're lucky to know that we are informed now. So we make better decisions on how we treat each other.
Right.
But from jump, it's about like when someone calls you a can you understand whether they know or don't know? Do you have time for that?
I think, again, to my point, if you say that to me, I don't really care because when I look at you, I see myself. If I see Agaba, I see myself. If I see Dr. Ron, I see him. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
My problem is if you get around a bunch of white people.
I want to talk about them too. You know, they're assimilating more folks that get around white people and act like you're like they're
that's
not
what we're talking about. Yeah. So we're talking about those when somebody else calls me that, you ain't talking about me. And that's the problem that African Americans have because yes, they are talking about your black too. They're talking about you too. When you get pulled over, they don't say, oh, well, that's a Ugandan kid. Let him go.
Yeah,
hey, that's a black kid.
Yeah.
Pull the guns on him too.
I've had
and that's the fight we have in the diaspora. Why you think you so like the thing about the diaspora is a lot of us I'm very tribalistic in the African. Me and Joan have had some really interesting conversations that's offline that can never be recorded because I will be called a hateful person, right? But I am very African American centered. Believe that. Like the way I talk to people, even here, is just like we would do back home. Us as a group, we're known for being very fucking straightforward. And we're gonna tell it like it T.I. is, right? But now at the same time, I also know when I see Joanita, I see my mother. When I see her, I don't treat her no different than women I would treat in my own community. When I see Agaba, whatever I would do for him, I would do for somebody in my own community. And that's the difference. But a lot of times, us in the diaspora, when we see each other, we think our group is so superior than the other group. And I'm from Ankole, I'm from Achole, I'm Igbo, I'm Hausa. Yeah. And then the white people looking at you, your wife don't matter either. So some of us, whoever in the world, because we have woke Africans too, don't get me wrong. We got woke people in the Caribbean. All of our woke crowd, we got sellouts in the African American community. All of our woke people around the world are telling our people, because we didn't have great people in our community, from Stokely Carmichael that was Caribbean, from Marcus Garvey that was Caribbean, and they were saying the same thing. They look at us as the same. So when they say the N-word, they talking about your also. I'm not talking about any other group but that sellout group. And those people feel like, well, because of our accomplishments in America, and because we are here.
You know, funny you say that because I feel like that sometimes also in Uganda when it comes to the class education system, because you are well trained to be like a British now, you're better than everybody else. You know? Like when you come from homes where people are like, hella bent on education, and that if you weren't educated, you are no class, you are nobody, there was no opportunity for you. That resembles the semantic of what you're sharing. Because even here, like when you never got a degree, you know what I'm saying? Someone quickly, you know what I'm saying, cuss you on the other side of like, we can't talk to him. You know what I mean? Or even just being like, your kids, like I ran a crazy community space that had a lot of different kinds of people. But then the kids who came from good homes only came because we love different. And the love that was there is not what they were getting at home.
Okay.
But then I quickly learned that if they weren't strong-willed enough to stay among those kids that were underprivileged, they would have never have discovered a lot of things, yet their family was dividing them by saying you cannot be with those kind of kids or those kind of crowds.
There you go.
Right? So what you're saying in the West, when you have those black people who are constantly wanting to drink the Kool-Aid of, you know, the colonialism conditioning, you know, appease the white folk. I'm one of those people that I've been on a SkyTrain in Vancouver and I'm talking like, you know how you like to say, oh, yeah, white people, you know what I mean? And my black friends like, you don't say white. And I'm like, why not? They're always saying black people.
Right.
So you feel like it's beat inside of you to be fearful of who you are.
Right.
You understand me?
Yes.
So that when it comes to trading with yourself, you are even, like it was my own fellow black person shutting me down for being confident to be able to be on a train communicating about my situation with white folk.
Right.
And he's trying to censor me so I can lessen my tone.
Right.
And, you know what I mean? Being a submissive,
Yes.
subdued. So folk like that have been well subdued as trained dogs. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
To follow the path of the master. And they will follow that. It's just like any level of human conditioning.
Right.
When it over surpasses, then all of a sudden you're thinking you're that person. It's like that clip on Dave Chappelle of the black, you know, dude who thought was white. You know what I'm saying?
That was what was his name?
Clayton
Bigsby. And I mean, that's the thing that we're talking about. And these conversations are needing to be had because we got to understand one thing. And the reason why we have this podcast here, it ain't the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
But it's our community that supports us.
Yeah.
And we didn't get it by selling out.
Facts.
We got it because our people support what we do.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that mind, you don't have nothing. And the thing is, as long as you got this skin, and when they say the N-word, even if somebody had a racist term towards, let's say, Ugandans in America, if that was a big group, and if a white person say that, and I would be like, I could have the equivalency of saying, oh, well, it's like I'm the Negro that talks very well, that's articulate. I think that was something that was very important. Like, oh, okay, well, you're not like the other blacks. Oh, okay, well, thank you so much. And then I thought, wait, what do you mean? Hold on. Am I supposed to not be smart? And then what happens is you start having a hatred of your own group because you're not talking about me. So it stops you. It boggles you from having an interrelationship with people in the diaspora to achieve something. But that is not how the Arabs believe. But let me tell you something, because we talk about one Arab, we talk about all of them. And I'm going to explain what I'm talking about. I just came back from Dubai. In Dubai, every person in the Arab world is there doing very well. They're in the military. There is no African country now where a Ghanaian can be in the Nigerian military for fear of whatever. Even if you're not in that person's tribe, and here in Uganda, you might not even be allowed to move up. But the way the Arab world, Pan-Arabism, if that's the correct term, I know I might be messing up. If you slur against somebody from Oman, Saudi come from you, Qatar come for you, Emirates come for you, and it's us against them. That's why Tariq Nasheed, and I'm not trying to make him as a great, but he has a saying, us first, then them. But when you say, oh, it's them, not us, it's a problem. Because when you go out and side against those white people who will never give you what you can give yourself, and that's because the black mind is messed up. White people will never give you what the blacks can give yourself. That's why we go to Dubai and Abu Dhabi now. Because Arabs figured out. And, you know, in Dubai, you've been there obviously, because Dubai is something that's very different in the world. It is the one place that is a complete blend of European and American capitalism in one city that I've seen. You can get Pete's Coffee and go to Carrefour in the same city. You cannot do that nowhere else in the world. But the Emiratis don't change their culture despite the capitalism because they love themselves first more than everybody else.
Yeah.
And the Africans are going there every day from to someplace else because when you should talk about, in theory, when you talk about Kenya, you shouldn't say, well, they ain't talking about me. They are talking about your ass. When you're talking about Nigeria, you are talking about me. You're talking about Agaba. You're talking about Joan. You're talking about Dr. Ron. You're talking about all of us. And until we have that mindset, we're going to always be worshiping them. And what has that gotten us? It needs to be a reason as to why, if we're going to be like that and ask for other folks, what is the resolution that we're going to get? They need to tell me. And there is no evidence nowhere in the academic record all the way from all of our people, George Washington Carver or Carter G. Woodson, that we can identify that blacks have gotten somewhere by kissing white folks' ass and hating on other blacks for that particular situation. It ain't on record. And that's why we need to have that conversation. If it's the N-word between blacks, I don't have no problem with it. I really don't. But when you let whites get a hold of it and you say nothing and try to separate yourself, and then you be the first person crying about racism when it comes back to you, because that's all that happened. You know how many black women and black men get disrespected in interracial relationships? Here in Uganda. You see those Ugandan young men, athletic. Look at the white woman. What does she look like? How many beautiful white women have you seen? Look at me when I'm talking to you. How many have you guys seen that was fine? You see a buff Ugandan guy or a good-looking Ugandan woman with a white person, that 90 years old. Hey, you've never seen no parity between blacks and whites as far as looks in this country, have you? It don't exist. Ain't no parity in that. It's not. It's always a young, strong dude, and the woman look like, there you go. Because whites ain't gotta give you no parity when you hate yourself. What do they owe you when you ain't got no parity? They ain't owe you no parity for what? That's what I'm getting at. They don't owe you no equality or no parity because you said, when they're talking about the blacks, they're talking about me. Give me the white girl over here like Lizzo. I'll take it. I don't deserve no parity. And that's why you will never reach to Dubai level. You will never reach to Emirati level. You will never reach to Oman level. Because when the Arab world come together, you cannot go to Qatar and not face Emirati or Oman or Jordan. But the black will sell you out for $5 for a white woman that white man won't even take. And we'd be holding her hand here in the Acacia Mall, thinking it's cool.
Well, they sold
I'm gonna tell it today. Is it true?
It's facts. You know, it's facts. I mean, you have to look at the cultural disparities, right? Mm-hmm. You have to really look at it from that perspective, because I feel like, you know what I mean, when you come from a background, like usually people ask me, you know, my oldest daughter, you know, the mother's Italian-Irish, right? And they ask me about interracial, you know what I'm saying? And they've been coming, they came here for like 4 years straight. You know, I've been coming back home, and then I'm in like this whole Pan-African space. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, we know. You know we're gonna get you.
You know what's gonna happen.
We going to get you. Oh yeah. You know I'm hard body too, so I got some questions for you after the podcast, brother.
But what I was gonna say is that on the other hand, I definitely see the way that, you know, Africans that are on the continent here, let me actually just, you know, be very direct, and their exposure to what they call class and opportunity or whatever is presented by the different, which by if white folks show up, they're like, they got the money, even if they're poor as hell. You know what I'm saying?
Do you know how many poor Ugandan and white guys in Uganda are writing books about how many women they slept with here?
Yo, listen, man, if I wanted to make a good business right now, it would be like hooking chicks up to white guys. You would
run the clients.
I have a lot of clients.
Of course, you would have.
So at the end of the day, you see that the complex is in what was presented.
Yes,
as the trophy, and that goes back to the image complex. You know what I'm saying? You don't praise yourself, so you will aspire to touch what you praise. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so if it's whiteness that you're praising, if it's whiteness that's held on a banner, right, you're going to try to emulate, assimilate until you get validated. And what's killing a lot of our people is seeking validation from such a misinformed space. And so we have to look at it from that perspective. Like, I understand clearly my cultural identifiers. So when I move, it doesn't matter like how I move with my interracial space of, raising my children and all of this stuff. I've raised them to understand where they're coming from and what they value culture as, and also reflect them back to their other cultural identities. But the idea that most people just treat it as a complex of opportunity. Oh, let me find a white chick because that will be my breakthrough. Let me, you know what I mean? There's so many of that. And at the same time, you been to Ginger?
About twice.
Yeah, because Ginger's the capital of these conversations,
What
white women have cracked the code of flooding into Ginger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
They even did a documentary about it.
Really?
You know what I
No,
mean?
I'm not going there, brother.
Yeah.
I'm a pro-black, but I can't get caught up out there, brother.
White women go shopping for men in Ginger like they're going to the dealership.
But he excited though. He want to go to Ginger. Yeah, his eyes get real big.
Oh yeah, you
brother in the back.
You exactly that type too, man.
He ready to walk there.
You exactly
You a
that
real
type
big
too,
one too.
man.
Yeah.
Yes,
I will take him tonight. It's very, very nice.
Take me to
We'll go.
Ginger.
Yes, you take me.
But I think it's time. This conversation is very relevant in these narratives that we are sharing because I think it's time for when you see, let's say, especially in the art space, I can speak for that. You see that a lot of people have raised this idea that every young black that comes up and becomes a bit identified as potential whatever ends up being, married or taken over by a white girl. It's a conversation, right? And so you see that the only reason that is that way is because when you lose sense of pride and you cut off at your source and now you're identifying with just mere trying to survive,
Right.
you start moving different. And so I know a lot of these kids move different. I brought so many white people here as much as I used to pray to bring black folk.
Right.
And that was hard until I cracked the code on how to do it, right? Because it used to be like, I put out invitations, but the only people that were showing up were white folk.
No, you put one out to me too. And I didn't come. So, so to be fair,
Yeah.
But no.
So the semantics in that space is really about how we see ourselves and how we tread our confidence on a platform of making sure that we are not losing who we are,
Right.
but we are able to use who we are to really call for the dignity, the respect, and the value that we offer the world, right? Because, you don't want to be a man purse. You know what I'm saying? You don't want
Right.
to raise a generation.
Kiki Palmer.
Exactly. That's another weapon, you know what I mean?
We're going to let Dr. Ron build that up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Professor, he taking notes over there.
Yeah, but I feel like, there's an opportunity for us to build new confidences around these conversations. But it starts with the conversations. If we don't call them into the spaces, then our people are out there suffering. Yeah. Right now you got a young man married to a white chick who's suffering, right? And not knowing how he got into what he got into. I know some that have made it to Europe and been back and then left the city and went to the village. You know what I'm saying? Because what they thought is not what
Right. That's a great conversation.
So there's a great illusion in between the spaces of trying to find your way, whether it's like I saw the white girl or you know what I mean? It could be an African-American girl because I also know some African-American girls that took dudes from here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Only because when you get to LA, they're like, he African.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's facts, actually.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And they gonna get you straight too.
Yeah.
African brother get married, woman, boy. The first day she gonna change everything in the house. The first day. He said, call all your tell them when I get there. Need to have them gone by the time I get there. That's a fact. The first time,
I actually experienced that when I was in California.
Yeah, they don't play, bro.
Got invited to a party. I happened to be probably the only African that came through. But then, whoever invited me, that female, you know what I mean, moved in certain ways. I was like, hold up, what's going on? Yeah. I quickly got uncomfortable.
They're going to regulate you, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
That's how they do.
And so that's why
I kind of like it, though. They're going to tell the I'm coming over there. Get rid of all of them before I get there.
Man, I'm sitting here listening to y'all, man. Oshay, you became very passionate over here, man.
Exactly.
I had to get tribalistic on y'all.
Using your feelings, man.
He was
I
bringing
felt
the
it.
house down.
Tribalistic, bro.
I seen it in your eyes, man. I seen a fire burning.
I'm about to
in your
grab
eyes.
one of y'all.
No, and I appreciate the intelligence of this dialogue, man. And I'm sitting here just trying to,
Yo, lucky I ain't got Doc to back me up, because I'm just saying.
I mean, I see it. I've been seeing him nod.
Yeah, you see he
the
over
whole
here.
time.
Nodding, right? So man, I'm just trying to just figure out how I can contribute intelligently to this conversation, because my perspective is, I have, how so many times we've heard famous blacks talk about, I've never experienced racism before.
Oh, Lil Wayne. Oh, yeah.
Right,
Build that up, brother. Come on. You're going somewhere. You're going somewhere,
I've never
brother.
experienced racism before.
Yes.
The police officer that saved my life when I was 13 years old and all that stuff. And so I say that to say everybody's life story is different. Of course, when you say I've never experienced racism before, you just have to really shake your head and feel like that's impossible. Especially somebody growing up Black in inner city America. You've never experienced racism before. I find it impossible. So maybe they're just trying to prove a point by saying something like that and trying to impress a certain group of individuals that they have a vested interest in relating to. But for me, it was, I grew up in suburban white America. I grew up with 80% of my friends were white kids. I went to a boarding school with 140 students at the time, right? My graduating class was 36. We were 5 black kids in my graduating class. 5 black boys in my graduating class, right? Yeah, 5. So I of course understood and existed. The first time I actually experienced what I perceived as racism directed toward me was when I was in elementary school. There was a kid, and we were. This is actually when my family was living in Indonesia, of all places. We're living in Indonesia, in Jakarta. I was going to Jakarta International School. So we were living in Jakarta, Indonesia at the time, and I was in elementary school. I was probably like in 3rd grade, fourth grade, and we were doing square dancing, and the teachers were teaching us how to square dance. And there's a certain move in the square dancing called a do-si-do, right? Where you have to like hook your partner and dance in a circle or whatever. So this girl, was supposed to hook my arm, like pulled her sleeve down and covered her arm so her skin wouldn't touch my skin.
Whoa. Was she white?
She was a white girl. Don't remember her
I
nationality.
hope you cussed her ass out, too.
I was like 8 years old.
That don't mean nothing.
But I remember that to this day. Yeah. You know what I mean? It struck me as wrong and odd in that moment. But I mean, moved on with my life. But I have that memory seared into my brain, remembering the first time an individual. Of course, at that time, you walk around Southeast Asia, and the famous blacks were Michael Jackson and Mike Tyson.
Right.
And if they've never seen a black person before, first thing that they're going to try and come do is see if the black rubs off you. So these were people, but you give them grace because they come from a part of the world where they don't necessarily see, people of our skin tone and our skin color like that. But yeah, so that was like the thing. When that girl first tried to cover her arm so she didn't have to touch skin on my skin when we were square dancing in 3rd grade or whatever. But flash forward to my high school days. This is now the day when you're hanging out with the cool white boys, right? And every high school kid, all of these high school movies that you watch, stereotypical high school movies, they have the geeks, the jocks, the computer nerds, the whatevers, the stoners, the emotional kids who you look like they could commit suicide any day now. All of these kids, right? But there was always the cool white boy who hung out with the black boys and had that voice. But then on the flip side, there was the black kid. Me and my boy called them the whitewashed black kids.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we know.
The whitewashed black kids the Carlton Banks.
Yes.
Of the world. You know what I mean? They're deliberately like, if I didn't wake up as a black kid and I woke up one day as a white kid, I would feel like heaven smiled down upon me.
Oh, okay.
Like there are kids like that live in this world, and in the United States in particular. And so, shout out to my cousin. I won't say his name because I have many cousins, but he'll know who he is. Because I feel like he became that kid in his teenage years, right? I feel like he became that kid in his teenage years. And it came to the point whereby he had a bunch of white boys who were his friends, and they would come to the crib and hang out because he had the cool spot to hang out. And they're hanging out, and not only are they, white boy humor is different.
It is.
White boy humor is different, right? First of all, white boy humor is very homosexual.
It can be, yes.
It can be. White boy on white boy pranks often involve messing with each other's genitalia and stuff like that. Yeah. Right? Especially among teenagers.
And it's not considered gay.
It's not considered
but
gay.
in the black community, get you killed.
What the fuck? You know what I mean? Number one. Number two, they talk about each other's mamas mercilessly.
Yeah.
Right? In a way that will get you slapped if you're talking that shit to your black friend.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And number three, when you're the token black kid in a circle of white friends, they will call you a and laugh in your face and feel free to do so.
What?
And then you will sit there and laugh right along with them.
What? See, I didn't know this. Did you know this?
I'm not talking about.
We grew up broken.
I'm not talking about. Now, mind you, this is my observation looking at it happen.
Yeah, you was rich, so we didn't know that. I'm glad you're saying this. So it gives some perspective.
I'm talking about. It's not like f you dirty. You know what I'm saying? It's like in a joking way,
right?
Calling you with a smile on your face, right? Calling you with a smile on your face. You know what I mean? Same way you call somebody, African booty scratcher, right?
Right.
Yeah. Village nigga.
Yeah, we know, and when we saying that, we know what we saying too.
You know what I mean? So those things happen, and I've seen them happen in real life. And so when you talk about sellouts, when you talk about blacks that assimilate and make it okay in their minds for whites to behave that way and speak about their fellow Africans or their fellow blacks that way because they want to touch, they want to be like, right? I've seen that happen in real life, and that shit frustrated me to the end of this earth. And I was like, how do I appeal to this young man to let him know that, like, at age 15 right now, these things that you're doing are going to inform how you look at yourself for the rest of your life as a man, as a sovereign black man walking this earth. You don't realize what it is that you're doing to yourself.
Right.
What are you going to be doing when you're a father and you're talking to your young son about these things? Like these memory structures are going to be there. And I was just trying my best to like imprint on this young man, like, yo, if I ever hear one of your friends in your black mother's house using the N-word, and then I hear you laugh, if I hear anything other than a slap hit his face after that shit happens, fucking all y'all up.
Right.
And I said this in front of the whole crew, But I was like, my guy, like,
defend yourself.
Man, like, respect yourself.
Right.
Like, don't go along to get along. Don't be that guy who just wants to assimilate and be friends with these people because this is who you grew up with. Because you don't have no black friends. You don't have to have no black friends to value being a black man.
Right.
So
that's powerful right there.
Well, let me just say this though. It has to be taught. Like, the thing is, I get what you're saying, but it has to be taught. Like in our community, and a lot of times people think that we don't got culture, but we have our teachers, you know what I mean? And our teachers pass it to our people. We have the stories of Jim Crow. We have the stories of how things used to be. Like, my mom is telling me and my grandma, we used to even, the ladies wouldn't even tell you about your period back in the day when it came. That was old stuff. When you got pregnant, you went to the country. Y'all call it the village. So we have to have knowledge of self. That's how we have the Carter G. Woodsons, the Dr. Ron Neals, the Dr. T.S.N. Johnsons, the Dr. Amos Wilsons. The problem with black society is we're so adamant about capitalism and wealth, but we don't have our teachers who understand our culture. Dr. Claude Anderson's. One thing about the Jews I can respect, That was situation that you just talked about can never happen in the Jewish community. Because the Jewish business people force you, when you up, to go to their elders. You will go to their PhDs and they will teach you and you will apologize to them and then you come back. But in our society, in the Pan-African world, our PLO Lumumbas, we're not incentivizing them. Our T.S. Johnsons, our Dr. Ronald Neals, these are the people who go to and they fight for us every day. And yet, what have we done for our intellectuals to teach our people the rules of engagement in our society? So then they don't know. How am I going to have respect for a black man if my family told me how I need to get along is through capitalism and education and attainment? And so whenever I make money, I go marry a white woman, I give it back any fucking way, which is something I do agree with Dr. Umar Johnson. I don't invest in my people or my community, so I never had the power that they have. And Farrakhan said that very plainly. White people never teach you how to do war, business, or how to value yourself. Something in that order. And the blacks have never found that out. Africa has not figured it out. We do not teach our people how to respect each other because our intellectuals and our historians are gatekeepers. What's another a name for a historian? We call these people something else in society. Huh? The griot. Where are griots? The griots are important in black society about rules of what? Engagement. But our griots die poor. And they don't get support. So why would I want to be a griot in the first place when you don't respect me? All you chasing the dollar and integrating somebody's system. Some brother came to my office the other day and said, you know what? The African drum sound is being lost. Our way of, and I've never grown around the African drum sound. I've grew around the iteration of the African drum. What we have interpreted in America from what it sounds like. But the real sound has been lost because our griots are few. And the business people are supposed to make sure the griot sound is still there. But it's not. Because we laugh at our own sounds. So nobody taught the black kid, you are a Ugandan, you are a Nigerian, you are whoever, this is who you are. And these are your people. I believe you had a good experience with that, right? But we don't do that. But what we have did, stay away from here, stay away from there, stay away from there. And then our griots have been lost. Our griots have been dissolved. Either they killed them and then we killed them. Dr. Amos Wilson has a famous quote. The biggest boycott in black America has been against who? Blacks on black businesses. But Dr. Amos Wilson was a what? He was a griot. And Dr. Amos Wilson died under unknown circumstances, didn't he? Thomas Sankara was a griot. But our griots have been lost. And no one's like John the Baptist said, I'm the voice in the wilderness. If you ever heard that scripture before. I'm the forerunner. I'm the voice. Our voices have been lost. So how do you know the rules of engagement without the griots? Our griots need to be incentivized to give rules of engagement. And once, no matter, think about the Arabs. They got griots. When the Arabs tell stories, they know who they are. Because you cannot build Dubai or Abu Dhabi if you don't know who they are. But when you don't know who you are, you have Kampala road problems that need 1 billion shillings a year to fix, and you can't fix it. That's why the roads look like that. Because there are no griots. But when you know who you are, you ain't gonna have that problem. You only had a problem when you don't know who you are. That's it.
And I think you've got to it, man. Like this whole confusion around, direction, self-respect and self-love, or like what we do in our communities and as far as our own reflection. It's about, I do something called Back to the Source every year. And I bring like elders who you will consider the griots, knowledge carriers and bearers. And I sit them among young people to just tell these African-centered, stories. But bringing us to the future of where we've arrived. And I did that because I felt like I was on a journey to reconnect, but I did not know how to. So I needed to get in community to find out what were things before my understanding now. And I think because we don't honor that space anymore. So we don't go to that altar. So that means that our destruction will be more. Anytime you're not, going to the altar to find reflection, find your own understanding, you continue to self-destruct. And I think that when you're able to now talk about, when you say, where are our griots? You know what I'm saying? It's like a generation like ours now that respects the cultural, indigenous narratives and see the power and the wealth and the value, the peace. I call it a very peaceful narrative because it reminds you of so much of yourself, but it also attaches you to a generational wealth, you know, that you had disregarded. You know, a generational wealth of knowledge. It could be a generational wealth of land.
Yes.
But it pivots you into a whole new level of seeing yourself.
Right.
As part of a bigger picture.
Right.
Right now, a lot of the people here, maybe 2 generations past, are not part of the bigger picture.
Right.
We're not operating as whence the roots. The roots got cut, you know, burnt out, and a whole new emergency of some kind of African emerged. And now we are working with him to recenter back to who he is.
And the whites, the thing about the whites is this. Do you know why white people are very fascinated by British accents? They never try to change that. Do you notice that white Americans never try to change British accents? Do they? Now, if you come over, you have to change your name to fit in eventually. Man. Is that what Nigerians got to do? Because you might not get a job. But whites respect Americans, despite what happened. White people love the British sound. They have never asked them to change it, have they? Because the British is their griot. So whites always know who they are. Blacks will never find that out. But the way they talk behind the circle, white people know who they are in position to us. And the more they get us to be like them, you will always have less. How many years have we integrated into, I mean, there was a documentary, I believe, How to Sell to the Negro. Have you seen the doc? At the time, 1 out of 3 blacks owned a house in the United States. What's happened since then? White said, look, if we got these people are getting too much culture, they got ebony, they got essence, we need to break this down. Mm-hmm. But whites have never forgot who they are, no matter how much you. White people will never forget who they are. They can do it. White people are the only groups I know that can integrate with blacks and have babies and stuff and keep power. You all day. But they never forget who, your offspring, don't forget who they are. Especially in the Portuguese and Brazils. They will screw Uganda and Nigeria all they have babies. White folks never forget their griots. They never forget their ultimate culture. And this is why Ireland used to be a dump. There is no dump anymore in Europe. What country in Europe and the European is a dump? Yugoslavia used to be a dump, but now Yugoslavia ain't Yugoslavia no more. Now it's Czech Republic and Slovenia. What else? Czechoslovakia and Czech Republic. Wherever whites are, they are not dumps. White people never forget who they are. It's us who forget who we are. Mm-hmm. That's why we don't have and they do. And it's always going to be like that. And see, when we try to be with them, we lose ourselves. But white folks are smart enough. They can all day long. They will never stop being Polish. They can never stop being German. They can never stop being Lithuanian. They never forget.
Oh, that's well said.
That's when she's tired. She wants to end. She say this.
No. I feel like that's the perfect way to end this episode, guys.
Never forget.
Yeah.
Never forget. Like, that was a word.
That right there. Like, what? Who else has something to add on after what he just said?
I had to try to outdo Gabs' podcast. Viral too much. But we have the legendary Dr. Ronald Neal here. I just want to say, I think he's here in the back.
Yeah.
He's one of our great black intellects in the African-American world. One of the best minds out there in the country. He will be here tomorrow, so he's here today. The white man tried to slow him down a little bit, but we're gonna get. He's gonna have here. He's a great mind. Shout out to him, Dr. Tierson Johnson. These are the people that I believe the African world needs to be behind. We had a great episode with Dr. Joseph Mbele, PhD over at St. Olaf College. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys saw the episode.
We did.
It was an amazing episode. He did a very good job. And we need, as the black world, I want to say one thing, as business people, which is what I would consider myself in the business class. We are nothing without our intellectual class. And every other group marries the two. Mm. We are the only group of people who have a business class without an intellectual class. And intellects teach us how to treat each other, how to have rules of engagement. And the black world is f***ed up. We have forgot our griots and our intellects. And I want the world to know our platform is for our people to teach us who we are, who we have always been, why we need to love each other and support each other. But our intellects know the truth, but we have dissolved our intellects. We have pushed them to the side. And that is why the black world is where it's at today, at the bottom, because we have forgot our teachers. That's all I want to say.
Well said, Oshay. Well.
You tired of me.
You say something.
tired
Who
of
we've always been. You say something. Who we've always been.
Yeah.
That should really last and ring in a lot of people's listening, right?
Yeah.
You're nothing new here. You've
Right.
always been. You know what I mean? And so when you reel that in and evolve on it, this is actually I've always been. So I really look for that greatness, that legacy. Like every story I could attach myself to. You know, that's like I was not the first here. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you for that. That was such an This was an interesting dialogue, interesting and intelligent. Okay, I loved every single moment of this. But Babaluku, where can they find you if they want to reach out to you?
Man, you know, you can catch me on IG at Babaluku. You know, if not there, of course, you did say I can share my email is babaluku360@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah, let's build.
Okay.
At Master Gabs, Instagram, Twitter, Allergic to Average podcast is live on YouTube. Go check it out. And hit me up, man. I'm down for some intelligent conversation in the comments as well. So you can at me in these comments and let me know if you like it or hate it.
And white boy's gonna hit you up.
You know?
Yeah. Hey, brother, I'm looking for
They
a
watch
black
our
African
podcast.
wife. I'm from Australia. Actually, happened me before. It was a guy that was a white person. He's like, hey, man, this is just a true story. I agree with you, see 100%. F those white people. By the way, I'm living in Uganda. I got a black wife. But everything you're saying, brother, I believe it, man. Your people got to hear this. So, yeah, you know, like I said, white people know when they hear something that's real, they know that it's true. Because what we're telling you here is what every group that's successful tells their people.
Yeah.
Don't nobody, and I'm going to tell you like this. Nobody, and I know we have Caucasians coming to Africa and all that. Whenever whites integrate with blacks, whites are always at the top. Usually, if they're not, they're managing blacks. You can never go to Dubai and manage an Emirati. Can you? Emiratis own everything in Dubai. The best you can do is be in the system under them. In Qatar. And until Africans or blacks have that mentality,
There you go.
you're going to be sending your people to be housemaids in Saudi Arabia or Black Lives Matter marches in Minnesota. So Negroes got to understand we got a lot of stuff to get around here in the black world, a lot of fighting. But I'd rather you fight here in the comments and get it over with and start working together. Because Negroes is going to fight. It's okay. But it's good that if you're fighting, you're at least talking.
Yeah.
True.
So let's fight here and get to the work next. Well, we got some Hennessy and stuff we're going to do in the meantime. We know y'all like a lot of and drinks.
Oh my gosh, guys, this
too.
Let's close.
Yeah,
this
y'all
one
do.
out.
We know you.
It's going off track. But
It's the
guys, you can email
Big
us.
booties and everything.
You can email us at teamkingana@gmail.com and reach out to us on our social media pages at Kingana Nation.
Yeah,
Also
tell the
subscribe
truth.
to our dating show at the Pan African Dating Show. See you guys next time.